What's up, family? So in today's video, we're going to be discussing the differences between a charge card and a revolving card. Now, in my opinion, when you're trying to build a business, when you're trying to build wealth, I think having both of these cards are going to be extremely important because, again, there's pros and cons to both of them. So the average viewer or the average credit card user may be very familiar with revolving credit cards. These are your standard credit cards that you can pretty much get from any bank. So let's just say, for example, I go to CIBC and I get their dividend infinite Visa credit card. That's going to be a revolving credit card. And basically, the base use of this card is that whatever I use, I can use again that following month, and I have a limit. Okay, so with these cards, you generally have a limit. Let's just say you get this card and you start off with a $2,000 limit. So I can't spend over that $2,000 limit, but I can use that or I have access to that capital every single month as long as I pay my credit card off in full every single month. Okay. And another great use or a pro of having a revolving credit card is that I don't necessarily have to pay off the full balance that I've used in the previous month. Now, the problem with this is that the balance that I do not pay off, I'm going to have to pay interest on that balance. Now, again, if you have experience using a bunch of credit cards, you're very familiar with everything that I'm talking about right now. So again, this can buy you time. Let's say you have a large project that you're working on, and you're not going to be able to pay that back off right away. You want to carry a balance on your credit card and you're okay with paying interest, then that's going to work. Now, again, typically with revolving standard credit cards, there's going to be a high interest fee, typically averages around anywhere between 22%. Now, if you are let's say a contractor and you buy a bunch of supplies, then maybe you want to lean more towards a line of credit because the interest rates on line of credits are a lot lower, but the barrier to entry to those cards are a lot higher. You need to have really good credit. You need to have a really good relationship with your bank to get access to a line of credit. Okay, so understand what kind of business you operate, what kind of individual you are as a consumer so that you can get the right car for yourself. But as a credit user, I think it's really a good idea to be well rounded in all aspects of credit and have access to all different types of accounts. So that's a line of credit, that's a standard credit card, and then what we'll get into next, which is a charge card. So the next account that I'm going to talk about again is a charge card. And the typical provider here in Canada for charge cards is Amex. Now, the way that charge cards work is that whatever you use the following or the previous month, once you get that statement, you need to pay that amount off in full. Okay. Now, Amex has gotten pretty flexible. They do have new programs to where you don't have to pay off what you owe in full, but the general basis is that a charge card is kind of like a net 30 account. So whatever you use in that previous month, you need to pay off in full right away. And especially if you want to create a really good relationship. Okay. And so you may ask yourself, why would I want to do that versus having a credit card to where I don't have to pay that off in full every single month? Well, one thing you need to think about is that with charge cards such as Amex, there's not necessarily a limit tied to that account. Instead, what they do is operate off of your spending habits. So if you spend, let's say, $100,000 a month, and they see that you're very consistent to that, then you're going to have $100,000 to access. You're gonna have access to $100,000 to spend on that card. To whereas if you start out with a standard credit card from a CIBC and you start out with $5,000, it's gonna take a really long time for you to get that limit up to $100,000, right? So this is why a lot of business owners that run ads, they'll use Amex to pretty much run those ads or other online business expenses. So even myself, when I'm running ads on Instagram or Facebook, I'm using my Amex card because I know I have a lot more access to capital with Amex. But again, you have to keep in mind whatever you spend on that Amex account, you have to pay that off right away as soon as you get your statement. Okay, so you need to pay off the balance in full. So with Amex, you need to be really good at having a budget because the interest rates can be really high. And if you're not paying that card off in full, you can have a terrible relationship with Amex. Okay, so really think about these things when you're trying to decide which card you want, but I really think you should have access to both. Another pro with having a charge card or a card with Amex is that the balance that you use isn't counted against your utilization. Okay, so I can go out, I could put 30,000, 40, $50,000 on his Amex card, and that's not going to hurt my credit. That's not going to raise my utilization, and it's not going to make my credit profile look bad, right? If you know anything about credit, utilization makes up 30% of your credit score, which is a huge chunk. It's the second biggest aspect of what makes up your credit score. And so it's very important that you keep your utilization anywhere between 1 to 10%. And that can be difficult if you're operating a business, if you're a small business owner, or if you're a consumer and you have high expenses. That can be difficult to do if your credit card is a small limit or isn't as high as you would like it to be, which is why you would want to have yourself a charge card because, again, it's going to show up as an installment account or an open account, but it's not going to affect your utilization. What it's going to do is basically just show the balance that you had on that card the previous month on your credit report, and it's just going to report on-time payments that you've had every single month. So this is another advantage to having that card. But the downside to having an Amex is that you need to be very disciplined. You need to have a budget in place. If you're not confident in your budgeting abilities, do not get an Amex because, again, whatever you use in the past month, that following month, once you get the statement, you need to pay it off in full. So if you are a major consumer and you're just spending money frivolously, this is not the card for you because you're going to rack up a bunch of debt and you're going to rack up a bunch of interest and you're going to make Amex even more rich, right? You're going to make them a lot more wealthier than what they already are. So if you lack at budgeting, I would say get really good at budgeting, have a standard credit card, and then work your way over to Amex. As far as the cons for a revolving account, so a standard credit card, we kind of discussed it. The interest rates can be fairly high, but if you want to avoid those high interests, then you need to make sure you work on your credit. Get a line of credit, so because usually with those they have a lower interest rates, and then on top of that, the con is that you generally don't get very high limits of credit. It usually takes a long period of time, and one of the strategies that I use that I can talk about in another video is that every 6 months I'm going to call my bank and request a credit limit increase, and I'm going to continuously build that credit up over time, right? But again, one of the downsides is that we need to be cognizant of our utilization with our credit cards because let's say, maxing out one of your credit cards and you just paying the minimum balance, you're going to be, first of all, paying a lot of money in interest because, again, on average, credit cards are going to be anywhere between 22% and sometimes even higher. And then on top of that, your utilization is going to be so high, it's going to be bringing down your credit score. So really know when and how to use your credit cards. If you want to be a real well-rounded credit user, then I'm going to say get yourself a standard credit card with a bank that you trust, with rewards and perks that you like. Get yourself a charge card, and if you have projects where you need to wait on return to investment, then a line of credit is a really good place to get started. So contractors, things of this nature, maybe you're in construction, line of credits are a really good tool. Maybe your turnaround time is a little bit longer than what you like, but there's really a lot of ways to get creative with credit, right? So if you have any questions, you want to learn more about credit, you can send us an email. Maybe you're going through a difficult time with collection companies. This is primarily how my business functions. We help those with credit issues, dealing with collections, consumer proposals. We help assist you dispute that information. If you need help, send us an email. I'll put it right here, info@kennyjohnsonuniversity.com. Me and my team will be extremely happy to assist and help you. And until next time, peace.